Twilight's going to be okay?
No, I think you've hit them in the starting gate. I don't think that franchise is ever getting off the ground.
Somebody should apologize to them. I'm sorry, Twilight. Day one. That was our first shot.
Yes, this was because once we left the snow, we came in and got that.
Everybody get your suits on. In 10 minutes, we're hitting the lake. Yeah. I was not informed.
This particular sequence, I'm extremely happy about,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
even more since we shot it.
Yeah, I don't think so. Whoa. No way. No, oh, shit. This is happening. Hold up!
You've got to be fucking kidding me. That's just creepy.
It was Pioneer Day.
Peter Deming, the DP, I think this is as classically beautiful as anything I've seen in a long time. Just you
It's
can-
so weird.
The
but
wood.
My
you
favorite.
just feel it.
I think one of my favorite shots in the movie is just that slow push in on the mirror. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
The tones that he captured in the wood, and the way the dirty reflections of the mirror
Mm-hmm.
feels. It's Peter at his best. It has that Mulholland Drive feel,
Mm-hmm.
which is so important to why we hired him.
It was very classical,
Yes.
which, I mean, that was something I was very excited about when we talked about you directing. Because, when we first started writing this, we didn't know who all was going to direct it. We didn't know for sure.
That's
certainly.
not accurate at all. Here's how this went down. You said, Drew, you're going to direct this and I'm going to produce it. Then, in halfway through the writing, when we were, and we should talk about that, how we wrote this, we were writing in a hotel room, you were like, Drew, yeah, you know what? I'm going to direct this.
Oh, how do you remember that?
And I was like,
That's excellent.
sad but happy at the same time, because it's like, all right, well, if I'm not going to direct it, at least you're going to. I knew it was a good sign. I knew that this means that we're on to something.
I remember at least one conversation where we were trying to figure out who would direct it if neither of us could.
I don't remember that at all. Who did we land on? Who did we think?
I think it was Victor Salva. As sort of like who would be the candidate because of Jeepers Creepers, which it's Jeepers Creepers 2 that's not bad.
I like Jeepers Creepers 1.
No, they're both okay.
I think they're
but
both good.
2, structurally, in the school bus, it's got that thing.
That's true. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot
and
about
he's flying, and nobody hates that.
that. The first one's good too.
Yeah, it is.
Jeepers Creepers, very underrated.
But you were like, I vote for me over anybody else. And I was like, that's fair. That's fair. I get that. But I honestly don't remember saying that I was going to direct it.
Look, I took it as this is a good sign. This means this is working.
I take it as I'm kind of a douche nozzle, but let's
No,
go with
no,
both.
no, no, not
let's
at
go with
all.
your theory.
I mean, if we want to get into why you're a douche nozzle, I'm happy to, but it's not because of this.
This movie's not long enough. I don't think it's a problem. Maybe in
Have
the
you done the
extras.
Avengers commentary? Because I have some thoughts.
Okay, you could help out there.
I gotta say I like my room.
Places, everyone. We are live.
Now, this is the Harbinger scene, and obviously we're establishing a ton of stuff here. But I can't remember the birth of the Harbinger scene.
I can.
I thought so.
It was this was the very first scene that we sort of, because the birth of Cabin was very much your idea. You had sort of the basic concept, the upstairs downstairs of it in mind, and we had been just talking about ideas because we wanted to write something together. And we wanted to write something fast.
Right.
If I'm remembering this correctly, that was
Yeah, no, that was
sort of the
definitely
goal. And so
thing.
we were batting around what ideas could we write fast, because you can't write an intricate murder mystery fast.
Oh, you also can't write, a premise movie.
That's right.
Like it's twice in my life a movie has occurred to me that had a third act. That came with the package. It wasn't just like, oh, it's Die Hard in a. Well, then what do we do? This is about. It's all leading towards only one thing, which is the chaos. Of the ending.
And one of the dirty secrets about Kevin is that it goes so crazy, and it seems as though it goes off the rails. Yet the truth is, it's a very simple, straightforward structure. Like Sid Field would love this movie for you screenwriting students. Like it has a very clear act break structure.
I did not. I remember sitting through the Hudsucker Proxy with and in the theater, and at one point they're chasing Norville Barnes because they say that he's mad. Somebody brings out the butterfly net, and the woman in front of me went, "Oh, really?" Like that. Like the rest of the movie was cinema verite. It was
this is where you lost
so
me
grounded.
at net.
Yeah,
right.
I'm like, so that's your breaking point, really. But the thing about the way this evolves is that it evolves. That like by the time it goes completely insane and off the rails, you understand why, and you're there. I've had very few people do an "oh really" about the third act of this.
Absolutely. I mean, it is very much like if you're still with us by the time we get there,
right.
You're with us.
Right.
Like,
you either love a merman or you don't.
But yeah, so you had this sort of basic concept. And then we just started talking about what would be great, and we landed on Harbinger early. Like when you need a Harbinger scene, and I remember we were at a bar. We were actually at we were at Melisse. Let's give them a plug.
Yeah.
A lot of our creativity is
best restaurants
done at this restaurant, and we were sitting at the bar talking about how we would break the Harbinger scene, and somehow we just. It was more a logistic thing than anything because we were like, how would the Harbinger communicate with the control room? And then we were like, I guess you just call in from a payphone. It's one of these weird things. Mm-hmm. And yet once that just opened it up for us, and we started riffing on how would this happen, and the whole movie opened up from there.
Yeah.
I feel like even watching it with an audience, that scene is where you understand the tone. Because at that point, until that point, you're still not sure where we're going. But once you see this, everything that this movie is about is encapsulated in a Harbinger being stuck on a speakerphone. It sort of has both worlds combined right there.
Yeah. So we skipped over the whole scene where Fran ran into a bear.
Oh, right. Yeah, while we were filming.
They're like, there's bears here.
It's actually on the DVD. I just watched.
Oh, it is?
Some of the extras.
The bear encounter?
It shows
Excellent.
Fran and bear.
Excellent.
You can also see,
so
by
Fran,
the way,
totally bear.
He is totally bear. And by the way, you can see how Fran Kranz is ripped like the Lord Jesus himself.
I know. He is
journal.
Secretly a muscular Jesus. And
He is, and I was like, Fran, we can't take your shirt off because that totally ruins his character. Like Marty,
also, it would
Marty
make Chris
would not
Hemsworth
be. And no one wants to see Thor cry,
I do,
except for Joss
and Loki.
Tom Link. Let's talk about Tom Link.
Tom Link. Don't make a movie without Tom Link. In a way, you've failed. Days of Heaven, very good, totally linkless. Now,
I always think
he wasn't
when those
born,
locusts
but
hit,
yeah, exactly.
Tom chasing them around.
Yeah. Grasshoppers.
Mr. Malick, call us.
Yeah, we can help.
Harsh, doesn't it? It's just people letting off steam.
Same applies to Miss Acker, of course.
In both of those cases, with Tom and with Amy, we did casting for both of those roles, looking for people, and then at a certain point we were just like, are we stupid?
Yeah.
Why don't we just go with the people that we love?
Yeah. Well, it was tough. Wendy Lynn was tough because you got to hold your own with these lads, and you got to bring a lot of life to it without overshadowing it. And it's I just remember you just saying, "All right, just get me Amy. Amy makes it better." And I was like, "Yeah, it's not even a discussion." Tom, you were just like, "Oh, and Tom's gonna be in it. Great."
Well, one of the things that's great is that I might get in trouble for talking about this, but when you shoot in a place like Canada, when it comes to those roles, the smaller roles, it's actually a union thing where you have to cast Canadian people. And if you're not going to, then you have to prove that there was no other person in Canada that could play this part, which I actually felt strongly that there wasn't. I felt like Tom Link.
No, Tom Link is the very dictionary definition of nobody else could play this part.
But I actually had to write briefs to the Canadian government as to why Tom Link is perfect for this movie and why no one else can fill this role. Which, when you read it in black and white, is kind of hilarious because at the end of the day, Tom Link has 3 lines in the whole movie, and yet once you see it, you get it.
He links them up.
Like I don't know anyone that'll skip play that part.
This makes me sad because this was yours and it was beautiful and it was truth or dare or lecture. And, tone and length and just not quite hitting, some of the stuff. We ended up sort of it got squeezed out. And truth or dare or lecture was such a great idea, there's that callback, I'm living in a womb of reefer, that was part of the lecture that Jesse was forced to give Fran, who's never played the game before. And that texture I miss. That was
that was an actual game that somehow evolved with me and my friends when we were in high school.
Why does that not shock me?
It switched from truth or dare to just truth or dare or lecture. And the idea was, if you wanted a lecture, you would say, I'll take a lecture, and then your friends could just lecture you, and you couldn't say anything. You would have to just say thank you for your lecture. And I just liked that. But what we found about particularly the first act is that you just wanted to get to that trapdoor opening. The only scenes we cut, I think, in the entire movie, in terms of things we actually pulled out, were all in the first act.
Yeah.
I don't think we cut anything that was not in the first act because it was all about just keeping the momentum, which I was all for.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think the rhythm of the thing is very nice. People talk about this all the time. Girl makes out with wolf. Either they find it disturbingly sexy or just disturbing, or they were convinced that wolf was gonna eat her face.
It's definitely one of the most fun scenes to watch with an audience for the first time because the tension just goes through the roof as she's approaching that wolf.
And Anna, once again, committing.
God bless Anna. Anna Hutchison, I cannot say enough good things about her because we asked her to do some ridiculous things in this movie and never questioned it. Just on board, made it better, made it feel real. We probably shot 15 takes of her making out with that wolf, like a lot.
Well, true. Now, did we need to shoot 15 takes for making out with the wolf, or is there something we need to know?
If you're asking the director, yes. If you're asking just me, probably not.
What's that supposed to mean?
I'm sure it was for art.
You're going to say dare, she's going to dare you to do something you don't like, and then you'll puss out and say that you wanted truth all along.
This is when Kurt first starts acting like that guy.
He's so good at it. The two of them sitting together.
Well, the thing is, it sounds like he's being a schmuck, but it sounds like he knows her.
Right.
Like she is that person. And it's mean of him to call her on it like that. But it's not like, I don't know. You know how I feel about that sort of genera speak where it's just like, I'm just going to say something that shows that I play sports and I'm unlikable, as opposed to, well, let's also allude to the fact they do have a little history. Which also take a moment for Kristen, who had this part the moment that I saw her tape.
Absolutely. And yeah, this was definitely the hardest role to cast.
Yes.
I would say of all the roles.
Yeah.
But once that tape came in, and Kristen was in New York, so she was on tape at first.
Yeah, but I just remember going, I can breathe again.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize you're not breathing.
But the stress level because we knew if we don't cast this part, this movie's not going to work. And there's not a lot of people that can play this. And Kristen just leapt off the screen.
Everything in this room pretty much had meaning. They did it. There's a masterful job of
our
junk collecting.
Our production designer Martin Wist and his team. I really put them through hell, and so much of it. It's so dark because I wanted it to be so dark, and yet it was so important to me that everything in there would match up with the third act.
Yes,
it was crucial, and yet people, they would make the argument that no one's going to notice the first time around. They're not going to understand. So why are we spending this much money? Why are we spending this much time? And yet it was so important that you needed to feel like all these connections could be made. And to their credit, they got it. And we worked. Well,
I remember they came to me and were like,
the
fortune teller. They're like, it would cost us this amount of money to import that fortune teller that Drew wants. And that was the first time I ever got to be like Kirk Douglas in the Bad and the Beautiful and say, shut your penny pinching mouth and get him his fortune teller.
God bless you. I remember that. I remember this.
It wasn't even that much money. It's not a big thing, but for me, it was very liberating.
It was, oh, God bless. I cannot get enough of Chris Hemsworth and the look on that conch.